Hello and welcome to this Takeda episode of the Eternal Law. Last time the Takeda clan had to deal with invasions by both the Oda and Tokugawa clans happening almost simultaneously and threatening to destroy the clan altogether. The Oda clan were dealt with in a huge siege battle in which Takeda reinforcement cavalry completely dominated the field and allowed the Oda force to be destroyed by careful maneuvering inside and outside the castle. Following this, Nobunaga Oda declared peace with the Takeda and entered into a military alliance. Then it was the Tokugawa's turn to be destroyed by Nobukado's large and elite army. The Tokugawa force, heavily outnumbered and outformationed, fell back and was destroyed. And now, let us continue. Leave those reports at your side. No news from Ichigo can be of more importance than defeating Shingen. Once I have his head, the land will be ours, and any troubles at home will fade as quickly as a doused campfire. Tell no one of any news from home, and permit no letters. We must be totally focused. I might change my mind once Shinano is ours. Tell them that! So we're picking up where we left off with the Takeda, moving from spring to summer of 1550. We were just about to see how Shingen was going to deal with the Yamanouchi and Uesgui threats to the east. It turns out that Kenshin is going to march right towards Shingen's position, and we have the opportunity to ambush. However, our ambushing force is far smaller than the Uesgui column, and the Uesgui troops are mainly medium-strength katana troops, whereas ours are light Ashigaru soldiers who probably one for one can't even defeat these men. So I declined to attack. However, Kenshin was so spooked by the fact that he got ambushed en route that he actually fell back towards the Yamanouchi lands to consolidate his position. So we're still safe for this turn, despite not being able to actually put up an effective resistance there. Quite lucky, really. The Yamanouchi main force now marches in. Instead of going towards Shingen's position, perhaps now aware that Shingen is there, it marches north, as if it was planning to come around the north side of the mountain range to attack Matsumoto down the main road between Matsumoto and Echigo province. We've now mastered the way of the bow, so it's time for me to pick a new art. I decided it was about time I focused more on the civil side of things than the military side, so I wanted to pick one of the civil policies. I ended up going for equal fields, which is an agricultural improvement policy. So that'll be churning away in the background from now on. Next we got news that the Hattori have been destroyed, so let's watch their clan destroyed video. Quite hard to tell what's going on because it's so dark, but the gist is people are getting killed by ninjas. So the Hattori clan in the capital region have been destroyed. I wonder what's going on over there. Well, at the moment we have no way of actually knowing, so we'll have to be content in our ignorance. So you can see here, the Yamanouchi have moved their main force and a reserve force up into our lands. Seems to be mostly light infantry actually, with some mixture of cavalry and a small amount of heavy infantry perhaps in there. The Uesgui main force is just about still in our lands. We're not really sure what they're going to go, where they're going to go to next, but they do also have a reinforcement detachment right up there at the top right hand corner, so perhaps they're going to try and link up with those guys. I wasn't sure. What I decided to do was to take Nobushige's force and start combining it with Shingen's ambush force, just in case they try to come around the south side again. I can do this because I know it will take them more than one turn to come around the north side, So if they do go around the north side, it's going to become obvious what their intent is, and I can prepare to repel them next turn. So for this turn, I can risk this ambush on the south side. I've got the force as strong as I can and sent the reserves back towards the castle, just for good measure. We'll have to see whether any of these enemy forces bother to come around, knowing that there's probably going to be an ambush just like there was last time. But I'm still worried about this situation down here in Suruga. I had to decide what to do with Nobukado's forces. I decided to take an incredibly risky strategy of moving Nobukado up to form a double ambush up here. I was worried that if the Yamanouchi and Uesgui armies combined their strength and attacked at the same time, we could be in big trouble. So I wanted to double my own strength to make sure that nothing could possibly go wrong. But this just leaves Kai slightly vulnerable because it only has a small army in there to help out the garrison should the Tokugawa appear again and attack, which seems actually to be fairly likely given that the Oda managed to stage an invasion right after a failed invasion in the past. Nothing says the Tokugawa can't do it as well. But I've still made the risk. So Kenshin moves forward again, just like he did last time, and is ambushed again, just like he did last time. This time the ambush is more in our favour because Shingen's force is larger. However, we're still at a man-for-man disadvantage because our troops are all light Ashigaru troops and the enemy has tons of Katana-Uesgui who will be able to cut through my troops once the fight is joined. So I still didn't really want to do this ambush. I was willing to just have the show of force be enough to push them back, like it did last turn. So Kenshin decides not to risk going any further forward and joins up with the Yamanouchi main force instead. So now we're in the autumn of 1550. We didn't get attacked during the turn transition, which is good for our forces in Kai. Plus they've recruited some more archers to increase their level of safety. I'm recruiting a Metsuke up in North Shinano, and I should be able to use that to get some more information on what my enemies are doing shortly. Now I decided to take Nobukado's force and move it into an ambushing position north of Matsumoto Castle because you can see up top the Yamanouchi forces appear to be coming around and walking down the road from Echigo, so it's pretty clear they're going to try and take the castle from that approach. So by placing Nobukado there, I've got a line of defense ready to spring out. Now for Shingen's force, I could leave him where he is to see if Kenshin would come around that route a third time, but I didn't think it likely. I thought Kenshin was probably just going to follow the Yamanouchi forces around to the north. So I decided to move Shingen back into hiding near Nobukado's force to provide a supporting position. If Nobukado is discovered and attacked, I can bring Shingen's army in to save him. At the same time, I am detaching Nobushige to give him his own command again, and giving him all these reserve units that are hanging around. His position there is supporting the castle, so if Kenshin does come around from the south and has enough movement points to get to the castle in one turn, Nobukado's forces will be coming in as reinforcements to protect the castle garrison inside. Now I decided to open up the diplomatic panel, and I discovered that Kenshin Uesgui actually wanted peace, and he wanted more than peace. He actually wanted to surrender the Uesgui clan to the Takeda. This was an incredible discovery. So I'm offering him the chance to surrender and set up a trade agreement with us and become friends. I make the offer, and he accepts.
It is heartening to see honor still exists in these treacherous times. You are a blessing to your clan.
So Kenshin, obviously very worried about the fact I kept ambushing his forces and had defeated his last army, decides that it's best for him to just surrender rather than continue this war. A massive boon for the Takeda clan. Surrendered? Impossible! Shingen strikes that much fear into an alliance of two clans with mere movements of troops. Oh brother, the land's as good as yours with enemies as willing to submit as this. Nobukado will be furious when he hears the news. He marched a long way for this war. He just can't get over this. I suppose though that now we can return to our wars with the Hojo and Tokugawa with full focus. It is time to upturn the whole Southlands with our hooves. Now because the Yamanouchi were a vassal clan of the Uesgui, by making peace and vassalship with the Uesgui, the Yamanouchi come under our vassalship as well, so we've gained doubly in this diplomatic encounter. What we've also gained is some information on what's actually going on to our east. We can now see the Yamanouchi lands in full, and we have some information on what's going on in these open plains around the lands of the Satomi and this new clan, the Satake, who control these castles in these very big open areas far to our east, which perhaps one day we'll be fighting in. Up here we can also see the Uesgui lands. They have a fairly open causeway to the west of their main base. They have a large naval fleet here and up here, and it appears that they are at war with the Date, because their ships have been engaging recently, and we'll see the Uesgui forces right now are marching back up in that direction. I believe Kenjin intends to take his forces north to try and capture some of the Date's lands in the northeast end of the Japanese island of Honshu. So we'll see how he does with that later on, I guess. You can also see the Date are contesting the Uesgui for trade ports to the far north, and successfully doing so. Oh, and what's this? The Oda lands appear to suddenly be attacked by an absolutely massive Ikko Ikki army. This is very interesting. As we reach the winter turn, we get a mission. This is telling us to capture Izu, which is a province owned by the Hojo, which I've mentioned in the past has a gold mine in it, so I'd already expressed an interest in capturing it. But here's the real development. This massive Ikko Ikki army is attacking Mino. The Oda army is probably less than half the size. They don't stand a chance. So suddenly it looks like the Oda are in huge trouble, and I thought I might be able to exploit this by stealing South Shinano from them before the Ikko Ikki do, because it has no standing army. So this is just one of the many factors I need to consider in repositioning my newly freed up armies. Nobukado's objective is going to be to move south towards Kai, because I'm sure the Tokugawa or the Hojo are going to pull something in the near future. As for Nobushige, I'm sending him back to the castle, because I want him to remain here, because I still don't feel like the area is totally secure, especially with the Annika Koji up to no good, as we'll see. Shingen I moved to the Oda border. Now I was thinking I'll declare war and just march straight on South Shinano and try and steal it, because the Oda now seem doomed. But you can see here that because of our previous alliance with the Oda very dishonorably broke, I would suffer a huge diplomatic penalty with all of the clans if I was to also myself renegade on that alliance. So instead I decide that I'm going to have to play it cool and just see what the situation with the Ikko Ikki turns out to really be, and not invade for now. Obviously, if the Ikko Ikki capture South Shinano, I could counter-invade and attack them while they're weak. That would be completely fair game, so taking South Shinano there is still on the table. You can see I also moved my Metsuke down. I'm going to use him to scout out some of the Tokugawa lands and look for armies approaching. So, the turn ends. The Oda consolidate a force, but do not attack the Ikko Ikki. So the siege on Mino is going to have to continue there. Oh, and a huge Tokugawa army suddenly appears and marches into Kai. It doesn't have enough movement points to attack the castle, which is extremely lucky for us. But suddenly, yet again, a new threat has appeared. So here is the situation. It looks like it has at least some heavy katana infantry and a whole bunch of long spears in there. So we need to do something about it. First I took my Metsuke and came to check the province of Suruga to see if the Tokugawa had any follow-up forces coming, and it didn't look like they really did. Also got a little spying on how what sort of buildings they've been building down in Suruga. So what am I going to do about this? Basically it looked like both Nobukado and Shingen had the opportunity to deal with this, but it kind of depended what happened over here with the Ikko Ikki. Because for some reason they hadn't taken the castle, even though it looks like they have the military ability to do so. So I was wondering what they're really planning over there. We get a message here saying that Shimazu, far to the west, have adopted Christianity. Very nice. We also have some more diplomatic encounters with some of the other clans, including the Ikko Ikki. And notice the Yamanouchi army is still just standing in my territory. I sort of was a little bit suspicious. They are my vassal now, but they were my former enemy, so perhaps they hold a grudge and refuse to take their troops home. Maybe eventually something will threaten them and they'll be forced to go back. So here you see I'm comparing the various merits of sending either Shingen or Nobukado to deal with the Tokugawa force. First I sent Shingen, but what I'd actually decided was I was going to bring both of them down. I'm going to leave Nobushige and the small army that he has to completely defend all of the north area and bring the main force of troops down, with the idea that we're going to both destroy this Tokugawa army and then push into their territory to make sure they never threaten our home province again. Unfortunately, neither of my armies here had enough movement points to actually attack the Tokugawa force and begin the engagement. I decided to recruit a few more troops while I was thinking about it. And this is something that happens every turn, but Yet again, I'm forced to expand my army in the face of growing threats, especially if that huge Ikko Ikki army makes its way over here. That could be an issue. Now I realised I could trigger a battle with the Tokugawa by sending the castle garrison out to begin a field engagement. However, the Tokugawa fall back down that little valley. So I decided to send the castle garrison back to stay there, just to make sure everything's safe. Of course, I am still under threat from the east side. It's not impossible that the Hojo can come up from the east and attack me. And now I have to end the turn to get more movement points. So we get to see how the Oda are reacting. They're sending more troops up to deal with the Ikko Ikki. The Hojo suddenly capture the province to my southeast that formerly belonged to the Satomi, so this is an issue. Enemy territory is now spreading around ours. The Tokugawa Metsuke appears and executes my Metsuke. I should have brought my Metsuke back, but I forgot. That was a terrible mistake. The Uesgui army marches further north towards the Date lands, and we see more Uesgui and Date ships moving about to the north. Then the Ikko Ikki come to threaten Owari. It looks like it's over for Oda. Oda Nobunaga is dead. All passengers from the west speak of huge Ikko Ikki armies roaming the countryside doing what they will. Those mad Oda fools have lost control to a bunch of crazy peasants. If that rebellion dares spread this way, I'll crush them with my own bare hands, the dogs. The fact the capital region could fall like this is the surest sign that a new shogun needs to reel those traitors in. I must cut a path for my father and bring Takeda justice to those dishonorable maggots. Moving into the next turn, we get reports that the Anagakoji are planning to attack us. This is bad news, and it confirms my suspicion that my Metsuke has been executed by the Tokugawa. How horribly mean of them. We're going to have to take revenge. So I've got my two massive armies here, and now I have threats to both the southwest and southeast, so really the apt thing to do is going to be to split them up. Shingen is going to deal with the Hojo, while Nobukado is going to be responsible for dealing with the Tokugawa. So I'm moving him down into a blocking position so that Tokugawa force can't actually get in. I still wasn't committed to the decision of actually attacking them, because if Nobukado's force either loses or wins taking heavy casualties, Kai would then be really under threat from a second Tokugawa force. So I didn't want to risk the home province with a head-on assault. I kind of wanted to draw them forwards, and you'll see how I'm going to try and do that later. What I'm doing now is taking Shingen into the Hojo lands. I found a position where he can hide his army in these trees, which will mean in the next turn he's in a position to storm down and take the castle at Musashi, which would both net us an extra province, and it would cut the Hojo off, because the Hojo are currently trying to advance around to destroy the Satomi, which would mean I'd be effectively cutting their main force off from their home provinces, which has always got to be a good thing. So now we advance into the next turn. Let's see how events unfold. The Oda appear to attempt a battle with the Ikko Ikki and get defeated. The Hojo take the next Satomi province and move on towards their final one. So it looks like our enemy are growing stronger and the Satomi are about to be destroyed. The Uesgui move more forces up towards the Date, and more naval maneuvers seem to take place up in the north. Now the Ikko Ikki take their turn, and they capture Mino, send an army out which destroys Oda stragglers, and appear to be marching on South Shinano. So the fall of the Oda has now begun. The Anagakoji again threaten to attack us, which is not good news, but Nobushige should be powerful enough to deal with them. Depends exactly what the Anagakoji have. Current time, we don't know. I'm further reinforcing Nobukado's position here with reinforcements from Kai, because we saw the Tokugawa actually reinforce their army, so it's turning into an arms race. But I didn't want it to turn into a full arms race, because I believe I'm economically weaker than the Tokugawa. So what I'm going to do is hide all of these forces beside the road, see if the Tokugawa army will move forward, attempting to greedily snatch Kai from me, and then I'll ambush them and attempt to defeat them. Meanwhile, let's see how Shingen can do in these Hojo lands. They didn't have many forces around. I attacked their first detached group and it retreated. It looked like it disappeared, but when I attacked the castle it was just slightly out of the line of sight, so it is still going to be involved in this siege battle, unfortunately. So we need to deal with those enemy reinforcements and then try and break into the castle. Both sides have about the same level of strength, so this could be a close one. Let's see. So here are the hills surrounding the Hojo fortress. The Takeda force is arranged into a couple of groups. The central group contains all of the cavalry led by Shingen himself and a few units of infantry. The main body of infantry is coming up towards the castle from the west side in a huge formation which is going to be used to encircle the whole west edge of the enemy's fortifications. Here are the Hojo forces inside. They're stationed fairly evenly across the castle, guarding the different entry points with varying levels of strength. Here you can see the Takeda have forces hidden in a forest to the northeast of the castle, and their objective is going to be to try and storm the inner sanctum of the castle once the fighting starts. However, the inner sanctum is actually guarded this time, unlike what the Ikko Ikki were doing last week, and next week in fact. But before any of that could happen, the first stage of the battle involved dealing with the enemy's samurai reinforcements, and these are samurai with upgraded weapons, so they're extra deadly compared to normal samurai. So to receive them, I simply arranged a formation of the infantry detachment that Shingen had with him and hid some of his horsemen in the forest slightly down the hill. The enemy of course were trying to reach the fortress, so they just rushed up towards my formation. My guys met them. My Yari samurai clashed with their Yari samurai, and although I have the strength disadvantage, I do have the terrain advantage in this situation. Now the enemy's heavy katana samurai started rushing up. However, I moved down a spear wall of long Yari Ashigaru to lock them into place. Their formation is broken up as they charge and try and break through this spear wall. The wall holds just about thick enough to hold them. At the same time I start surrounding them with my own lone sword Ashigaru, and then the cavalry break from the forest behind them. You can see them coming in here. They're charging uphill, so they're having a really hard time. However, just the fact that they're surrounding the enemy causes them to realize what's going on and completely break. Their formation is crushed, and all of those men are killed. The Yari samurai go the same way very shortly after I proceed to surround them. So now it was time to start the siege part of the battle. I moved all of my cavalry to attack the east side. My infantry, as I said, are going to attack the west, but it will not be easy. Atop a hill of magnificent size stood a castle even greater. A network of walls and towers of the famous Hojo design stood between us and the sunset. As we rode up to the wall, we all knew our role and Shingen's plan was ill-suited to us, but there was no one else. To my left and right, men were quiet, speaking only their last words to their loyal horses. Hojo Sashimono were moving this way and that on the walls, and arrows began to whistle down in odd patterns. It was time for the ultimate test. So here we see the Takeda's huge cavalry force arranging itself on the east side of the castle. Now they're going to have to dismount from their horses to get inside, which is going to put them out of their comfort zone. However, they're going to be playing a key role in the strategy to take the castle, because they need to hold back the enemy main force from getting out of the outer section of the castle. So they have an important role, and they're not particularly well suited to it. However, it would have taken too long to rearrange my formation to make the infantry body take this responsibility, and of course the enemy's infantry inside the castle could simply rearrange itself to counter any such move. Now because these guys were taking arrow fire from the enemy's towers, I started to accelerate my plan. I rushed them up to the walls and put them in position ready to assault at various different points. Then I ordered them to dismount from their horses, ready to begin ascending the walls. This is the true test for them. They move forward into position in front of the walls, ready to start their respective climbs at various points. The enemy don't react immediately. Back over on the west side of the castle, the infantry body is now beginning its climb. It's going to be assaulting one of the large outer sections of the castle to distract some of the enemy forces and then try to break its way further inside, forming up men just inside the castle wall. And now the enemy are beginning to react to my incursions all over the castle. They're moving troops about. In this case they're moving some of the Yari samurai to meet my Ashigaru in battle. I have the strength disadvantage, however I do have numbers. I'm going to be able to get around these units. I have pretty much double their numbers, so I'm going to be able to surround them. I also have archers in the area. Those archers I'm going to use to put behind the enemy formations and shoot into their backs to demoralize them. And that will lead to these units actually being defeated rather quickly. Plus these Naginata Ashigaru are very hardy. They held up well in the initial engagement. Back over on the east side, my secret group is now beginning its assault and moving up the walls.
We have captured their tower, my lord!
But before they can get inside, the enemy need to be stalled, and this is what the cavalrymen here are doing at the moment. Fighting frantically with the enemy main force, which has been pulled in from one of their outer sections to the south to engage them. And of course, these men are not trained to fight on foot, so they're not as effective as the enemy warriors are going to be. But all they need to do is hold out for long enough for me to capture the Tenshu inside the castle, or for me to reinforce them. Now of course I'm going to be attempting both. So a bloody battle ensues, including the enemy cavalrymen coming in, perhaps taking the joy of getting a chance to actually kill some famous Takeda cavalrymen. So eventually what I did was I got some long Yari Ashigaru inside the castle, moved them up into spear wall formation to start pressing the enemy back from the entrance to the inner sanctum to make sure I'd be able to capture it. There was a small glitch here and they messed up their formation and decided to fall back and reform the spear wall before moving in again. So let's see how I'm doing. I am trying to capture the Tenshu here. You can see I have a unit of Yari Samurai which is infiltrated and is capturing it without any resistance. The enemy did start moving units up to counter them, however they were drawn into the fight with the long Yari Ashigaru here. So now they formed a successful spear wall. The enemy are ploughing into the spear wall, trying to kill them. You can see on the right hand side of this image I'm moving some of the cavalrymen who were engaging with the enemy away, since they have sustained heavy losses. Barely any of them are still alive. I wanted to get the survivors out. And now those long Yari Ashigaru are just going to have to hold out against this huge enemy force they're facing for long enough to deal with the enemy. You might notice the timer on the top left hand corner is not actually going down properly because there are enemy units currently defending the Tenshu. Unfortunately they were able to get some units over there, but of course it was actually only one guy when it came down to it. I went and had a look, and this one enemy troop who was fighting against all of my Yari Samurai, he was causing my lack of ability to actually capture the Tenshu. So all I needed to do was have someone kill this guy, but of course we're now encountering another AI bug where when the AI engages single enemy troops, it can't actually deal with it and it kind of messes up. Eventually I did manage to defeat him. It took a long while, so now we got to the business of capturing the Tenshu properly.
Our men are running from the battlefield.
The long Yari Ashigaru are still holding out just about. They did an absolutely excellent job of holding off this enemy force. Not that many of them died either. They managed to keep their formation very well and just keep the enemy back. They weren't really killing many enemies either, but they were doing their job of delaying them and stopping them from walking up the ramp and preventing me from taking the Tenshu from them. So as a result of their bravery, it's a decisive victory. We may have taken a fair few losses, which we'll see back on the strategy map. Hopefully it'll be acceptable. The results actually aren't so bad. We lost the unit of light cavalry and one of Naginata Ashigaru, but overall we only lost about 1/3 of our force. The cavalry lost a greater proportion, maybe over half of their respective regiments. But still, Shingen's force is actually looking pretty good after this capture. So now the province is ours. We have captured Musashi province and I will be peacefully occupying it as usual. We also gain imperial recognition for this great victory and the expansion of our territory. So potentially the Shogun is looking over at us a little bit jealously. The territory itself has a few military buildings and some space for further construction in the future, so I should be able to expand that into something good. But here's the problem: the Hojo army looks set to attack the Satomi here, and it depends kind of what's going to happen, because the Hojo are over there as well, they're over here. So Musashi is surrounded, and Shingen is going to have to make decisions about where he can go so as not to risk the castle. And of course we have this whole Tokugawa situation to deal with, so we're going to see how these issues are resolved next time. That's all for this week. In the next episode we'll be seeing whether the Oda can deal with the remnants of the Ikko Ikki and hold on to their recent gains in central Japan. That's next time on The Eternal Law.